for joining us this morning as we unveil the Tejano Monument. This monument is a commemoration of the past, but one that also denotes a new day. The Tejano Monument recognizes the significant historical contributions of Hispanic Latinos throughout Texas history. But just as importantly, it is a monument we hope and believe will inspire thousands, indeed perhaps millions, of Hispanic Latinos to continue to build a better Texas in the future. My name is Richard Peña Raymond. Soy el nieto de Nicéforo y Eulalia Peña, and AD and Rebecca Raymond, and I'm so proud to be associated with this monument and the people that made it a reality. Este es un día donde realizamos una idea, un sueño de Dr. Cayetano Barrera para marcar no solamente la presencia de hispano-latinos en Texas, pero también reconocer las contribuciones de nuestra gente en lo que es un lugar que llamamos Texas. When one looks at the Tejano Monument, it almost looks like it's always been here. Almost as though it should have always been here. And perhaps it should look that way because we've always been here. We are a part of Texas history, and it is a part of us. Today, the unveiling of the Tejano Monument reminds us that we must continue to build the new world discovered so long ago, a new world that continues to offer so much hope and promise. And we must do this because this new world is our home and always will be.
Let us pray. God of all time and history, we gather this morning to invoke your blessings upon us. Tú eres el Dios de la esperanza y de la vida. Y gracias te damos este día por esta gran oportunidad. As we dedicate the Tejano Monument, which honors the first Hispanic settlers of Texas, we are grateful. The monument beautifully portrays the spirit and determination of these men, women, and families we now call Tejanos. God, our Creator, you fashioned us in your likeness and image. You have planted deep in the hearts of all peoples the desire to seek and know you above all things, and endowed us with a longing to create a society built upon justice with a concern for all our brothers and sisters. This monument speaks of the pioneering legacy of Tejanos that for centuries helped shape Texas history and culture. We are inspired by their lives, the wonderful values they have passed on to us, and the lasting sacrifices of these individuals, now immortalized in bronze. Ever gracious God, we are thankful for the many people you inspired to create this living monument, in particular to the artist who transformed those ideas to create this work of art. May these images serve as a sign of hope and vision for generations to come. We make this prayer in your most holy name. Amen.
By the Aggies, yes. We'll be led in the pledge by students. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please help show our appreciation to the Texas A&M University Corps of Cadets Color Guard for their superb job, the children of the Tejano History Curriculum Program from the Austin Independent School District for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and to the Laredo Community College Mariachi Group for their wonderful rendition of the national anthem. Please be seated. Today, I'm honored to introduce to you a gentleman who has committed his adult life to public service in the pursuit of a more prosperous Texas. Texas' longest-serving governor. He is the first Texas A&M graduate to, I knew it. The whoop. Yeah. First Texas A&M graduate to occupy the office. He has led a life of public service starting in the United States Air Force and continuing over 2 decades in elective office. History will show that this monument was approved, dedicated, and unveiled while Rick Perry was governor, and that is significant. But history doesn't always show what happened behind the scenes. As a state representative who was very involved in this movement, I know personally how supportive Governor Perry was throughout this process. He never wavered in his support and enthusiasm for what we were trying to accomplish. We are very happy that he's here today and appreciate his presence. Please help me welcome the 47th Governor of the state of Texas, the Honorable Rick Perry. Yes, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Richard, thank you very much. It is an honor to be here, and the important work that you and your colleagues did to make this happen. I was honored to put pen to paper back in 2001, Robert, when we authorized that legislation for this monument. You think about it, you know, it's been that long. It went by in a hurry. But if anything's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And let me just say to Armando Hinojosa, you did it right, sir. You did it right. Now, I don't know much about art, but I know what I like. And today, this important monument, it joins the ages on these beautiful grounds in front of this magnificent Capitol building. I think the most magnificent Capitol in the United States. The fact that we are here today is a testament to the vision of Dr. Barrera. And he toured these grounds one day in 2000, and he realized that there was something missing. We're here today because of the talent and the skill of Mr. Hinojosa, who fashioned from metal and stone a reflection of how we began, a culture, a state, and where we are together headed, filling the gaps between inspiration and dedication. We're here today because of the immense long hours of hard work put in by those who believed that this monument was long past due. And that is a full list of contributors, and it could run for pages. Legislators who first introduced the bill, the staffers who figured out how to make it happen, to those who kept laboring as we worked on all of the details, including just where this monument was going to eventually stand. Governor, I think it looks great, right where you put it. Listen, it was the Preservation Board, the Historical Commission, the Texas Commission on the Arts, they all played a very important role, and I commend everyone involved for a job exceptionally well done. This is an important monument because it reflects a larger truth about the origins of Texas, about the contributions of so many Hispanic citizens to the creation of this state that we love, the lives that we share. These contributions are ongoing with the Latinos providing political and business and spiritual leadership in communities throughout Texas. And these contributions will continue as younger generations are inspired by the examples of those of you who are going today and those of you who went before you, as they move into their place to mark our state and the world that they inherit. That's particularly important in a state where roughly a third of our citizens identify themselves as Hispanic, making them part of what is Texas' largest demographic group within this decade. And as I've said before, the future of Texas is tied directly to the future of our Hispanic population. And I believe we have a glorious future ahead of us as a state. We have a glorious future. Because no matter the color of your skin, the sound of your last name, and no matter where your parents originally came from, we all have much in common. We share the desire for safe neighborhoods for our families, for the opportunity to succeed based on our own merit. We share the core values of family, of faith, of hard work. Hispanic children, as always, have the benefit of a wide range of role models to inspire them. They can look up and see the first Latina Secretary of State, Hope Andrade, the first Latina on the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, Elsa Alcala. They can look on this stage and see the first Latina of the Texas Supreme Court, Justice Eva Guzman. They can aspire to be the next chancellor of the University of Texas, Francisco Figueroa. They can aspire to be, as this young Jones County boy, the Bishop Jose Vasquez, and lead in that spiritual way. They can see Commissioner Andres Alcantara at the Texas Workforce Commission, or Elaine Mendoza at Texas A&M University's Board of Regents. And that doesn't even scratch the surface. But there are role models everywhere. Every day, Hispanic Texans are presiding in boardrooms. They are providing solace and spiritual guidance in churches. They're teaching boys and girls in our classrooms everywhere. They're walking the beat, keeping our neighborhoods safe. They're holding rifles in defense of our freedoms in Afghanistan and other hotspots in this world. They're running towards the flames to protect their citizens as firemen, just like the early Texas settlers of Spanish and Mexican descent that are depicted behind us. They're doing the job that needs to be done, carving a life for themselves, ensuring a better life for others. Once again, I'm honored to be here today. I'm honored to be here representing what I consider to be the greatest state in the nation, peopled by the most wonderful citizens that could be imagined, and offer thanks from a grateful state to the citizens who have made today possible. God bless you, and through you, may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Thank you. Richard?
Thank you, Governor Perry, for helping us realize our dream and for recognizing the contributions of Tejanos to our great state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time it is my pleasure to introduce a McAllen physician whose single realization that not just a chapter of Texas history was not being told at the Texas Capitol, but in fact several chapters, really, a whole book of chapters were not being told. His realization became, 12 years later, the Tejano monument we unveil today. Dr. Cayetano Barrera.
Thank all of you for being here. This morning somebody said, what if it rains? I says, I don't care if it rains. We waited 12 years and we're going to do it. So here we are today. Thank all of you for being here. In 1649, 187 years before Texas became Texas, Captain Alonso de Leon, a common ancestor to any of us here, wrote the history of the province of Nuevo Leon in New Spain. At that time, the province of Nuevo Leon consisted of northeast Mexico and almost of including all of Texas, including what is now our state capital here in Austin. He mentioned that he was writing the account of the great deeds of the early Spanish explorers and colonizers because he did not want their great deeds to be forgotten in the caverns of oblivion. So we are here today to memorialize the earliest chapter of the history of our great state of Texas, a chapter that is 493 years old and has been largely missing from our state capitol grounds in the history books in Texas. On May 6, 1888, Senator Temple Houston, the youngest son of Sam Houston, stood in front of this brand new Capitol building, magnificent Capitol, and he delivered the dedication speech for the new Capitol. Before the dedication of this beautiful building in 1888, Texas had moved its site of government 11 times, and its most recent Capitol had been destroyed by fire 5 years earlier. Temple Houston mentioned that with this new building, larger than any other state capitol in the United States and taller than our national capital in Washington, Texas would enter a new era in its history. It is in this spirit of the milestone of our Texas history that today we dedicate this memorial, hewn from the granite, the same quarry as our capital, and will renew our vow to future generations of Texas and assure that all our rich Texas history will not be forgotten, as Alonso de Leon so eloquently stated, in the caverns of oblivion. And I must emphasize today, this monument is no longer now just a Tejano history, but it is another chapter in the history of all Texans and that have made Texas the great state that it is today. I would like to introduce the people that made this possible, the work on this monument, and I will start with our board of directors for the Tejano Monument, Inc., Mr. Richard Sanchez, Secretary Treasurer. Richard, over here. Homero Vera, Vice President, over here. Dr. Andres Tijerina, Vice President. And Renato Ramirez, Vice President. And our advisory board, William and Estela Cermenio from Goliad are here. I think we got a bunch from Goliad here. This is Benny Martinez from Goliad in Houston. Where's Benny? Benny. Loretta Williams from Houston. Judge Emilio Vargas from Goliad, the judge over here. And RJ Molina from Heavenville over here. Other people that helped, and we couldn't have done this without them, is architect Jaime Beeman from Casabella Architects from Austin. And engineer Jose Guerra. And of course, our sculptor, Armando Hinojosa. Another advisory board, Aida Torres from McAllen. You know, Armando stood through thick and thin, even when we didn't have quite the money and the the sculptures started melting in the heat in Laredo, and we had to redo them. But anyway, there's so many people here, legislators, donors, people that supported us, that it's impossible to thank all of you. And we richly are glad for your donations and your support, and the legislators for all their hard work. And we hope that the work that we have done with this Tejano monument will be a big thank you for all of you and from us. And I accept this as our monument to Texas as a thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Barrera, for being a visionary and for having the tenacity, and that's what it took, to see this project through. At this time, I would like to introduce the first Mexican-American woman elected to the Texas Senate 2 decades ago. She has been a strong supporter of the Tejano Monument, both in terms of helping get state financing for the project and joining House and Senate colleagues in passing legislation in order to establish the monument. Please welcome my friend and my state senator, Judah Safarini.
Thank you so much, Representative Raymond, for your warm and generous introduction. And thank you all for being here for this very special day. Aren't you proud of Armando Hinojosa and this fabulous monument? Hoy celebramos lo que muchos sabemos. La historia de Texas es la historia de Tejanos. The story of Texas is the story of Tejanos. We who appreciate that also appreciate the many, many people who made today possible. But I have to tell you, that as a Laredoan, I am particularly proud of Laredo's favorite artistic son, Armando Hinojosa, and all of you who have supported him. Will all Laredoans who are here please either rise or wave if you are standing to be recognized? What a turnout. What a tribute to Armando. Armando's concept of family, which he personifies in this monument, reflects the lessons he learned not only from his grandparents and from his parents, but also from his loving wife, Sandra, and the lessons they have taught their children and their grandchildren. Would all the members of Armando Hinojosa's family please stand and be recognized for your love and support? This famous painter and sculptor has been recognized in many ways, but today we celebrate his greatest accomplishments. Many of you know his work, his paintings, his sculptures, but perhaps what you didn't know is that his painting career began with one very simple act, a 29-cent watercolor set that his wife bought for him from Woolworths. And what you may not know is that he has done all this work with only 8 working fingers. 2 were amputated, and 1 was reattached, only cosmetically. And that shows his dedication, persistence, and determination. Thank you, Armando Hinojosa. But just as his family and all South Texans have supported his work, so has the Texas legislature. You have heard of those state representatives who are here, but we also have some state senators, Senator Leticia Vandepute from San Antonio, Senator Kirk Watson from Austin. They were leaders in the effort, but so were many, many other senators, including Senator Gallegos, Senator Lucio, Senator Hinojosa, and others. There are many people who said we couldn't succeed. And when the initial House resolution was passed, authored by Representative Quino Flores and sponsored by Senator Gallegos, they said, well, it's only an authorization. What will come of it? And for a while, nothing did. They continued that effort, however, supported by many of their colleagues in the Texas legislature who are here. Would all the state representatives and state senators please rise as a body and be recognized? Thank you. It wasn't until 2007 that we secured $1.1 million in state appropriations. And that wasn't enough. But all of us know that government cannot do everything alone, and that is why we are so grateful to Renato Ramirez and others who raised more than $1 million, mostly from residents of Zapata and Laredo. Will everybody who contributed please rise and be recognized? All the philanthropists, or wave if you're standing. So we had authorization, we had some funding, we had some contributions. What was left? The placement. And it wasn't until 2009, which we passed a bill which many of us did not say we had a chance to do. We passed a bill that authorized the placement and got the approval of the State Preservation Board to place this Tejano monument right here at the entrance to the state capitol on the historic South grounds. Many didn't give us a prayer, but I'll tell you why we did it. And those of you who know me know I'm always perfectly frank. In the Texas Senate, I can't speak for the House, but in the Texas Senate, we did it because of one reason and one reason only. And that man is Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst. All of a sudden, when Governor Dewhurst expressed his support of the effort, all the barriers melted away. Because, you see, in the Texas Senate, we recognize his charm. And on the rare occasion that a senator does not, he invites them to pray with him. And so it is because of Governor Dewhurst and his simple support, his simple statement of support, because of his power, because of his influence, because of his understanding, that we passed this bill unanimously in the Texas legislature. Thank you, Governor Dewhurst. And how appropriate that he is our speaker today, because, you see, he is a real Texas cowboy. He is a rancher, he is a champion cutting horse rider, and did you know that he was recently inducted into the Texas Cowboy Rodeo Hall of Fame? And all cowboys know, and if they don't, they should, and if they don't, they will after today, that the Texas Cowboys history stems from the vaquero. The vaquero personified in today's Tejano monument.
I want to thank each and every one of you all for being here today. This is a very, very special day, obviously, and it wouldn't have happened without so many people being involved. My colleagues in the House, my colleagues in the Senate, the Preservation Board, John Sneed did such a great job, and Armando, it's a fabulous piece of work, fabulous piece. And I'm honored to have had a chance, by being one of the 3 members on the Preservation Board, to have been able to vote yes on this project and at the end of the day make it a reality. This is great for Texas. And again, this was the House and the Senate working together, but I'd be remiss not to say once again to my colleagues in the Senate, Senator Watson, thank you for your support. Senator Van de Putte, thank you for your support. Senator Gallegos, Senator Hinojosa, Senator Lucio, Senator Uresti, thank you. You know, there's so many things that make Texas special. Our history, our culture, our music, but most importantly, our people. You know, there's an old saying, you got to know where you came from to know where you're going. And most Americans don't realize that long before Sam Houston, starting in the late 1500s, we had missionaries and settlers traveling all the way from Spain and Mexico to make their way to Texas. And over the centuries, all these values have been woven into the Texas fabric: faith, family, hard work, and love of freedom. It's my hope, and I know it is yours, that this monument will always stand as a reminder to future generations of the important and lasting contributions made by Tejanos that exemplify the true spirit of Texas. And I want to add 2 more. The Tejano sense of sacrifice and patriotism. Senator Ogden said last year that, and I remembered it, one powerful reminder is the incredibly large number of Spanish surnames that are carved into monuments in military cemeteries. Fellow Americans, willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. En mi español tan oxidado, yo creo sinceramente que el futuro de Texas es el futuro de los tejanos, los hispanos. Y aunque todos de nosotros venimos de otros lugares, siempre unidos en nuestro amor para América, no hay nada que nosotros no podemos hacer. And it's my hope, ladies and gentlemen, that here, right here on the entrance to the Capitol, that this monument will remind all Texans of our roots. In dedicating this monument today, we honor all Tejanos, whether in business, government, agriculture, arts, for all their valuable contributions. And as over 500,000 new Texans arrive each year to build new lives, build families, build businesses, this monument will remind all of us that all of us came from someplace else. That no matter who we are or where we're from, we all came for the same reasons: freedom and opportunity. To live in a place where there are no limits. I mean, this is a personal story for me too. I mean, my father was killed when I was 3 years old. My mother went to work as a secretary. I had to work my way through high school and college. Texas, to me, is a place where there are no limits on our dreams. That anybody from any place can climb heights as improbable as they are breathtaking. That's the Texas I want for everyone, everyone. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, for everyone, thank you for making this dream a reality. Que Dios te bendiga. Gracias.
Thank you, Governor Dewhurst. Muchísimas gracias, amigo. It is time for me to acknowledge some very significant efforts on the part of several members of the House of Representatives. And I'm going to start with the author of the original legislation that authorized the Tejano Monument on the Capitol grounds. My old friend and former colleague, Representative Kino Flores. Kino, stand up. Kino took the bull by the horns, as they say, and was a key member of the Tejano Monument team, crafting and passing key legislation that would eventually lead to the funding and emplacement of the monument. And if you know Kino, oftentimes he was the bull, and he used those horns. But he did it because he felt so passionate, and Kino, we thank you. But none of us could have accomplished this monumental task alone. Representatives Charlie Guerin, Vilma Luna, Ryan Guillen, Trey Martinez-Fisher, Speaker Tom Craddock, Speaker Joe Strauss, and many others helped to push this project over the top to gain approval from the legislature as a whole and from the State Preservation Board. Representative Dan Branch is here. Dan is the chairman of the Higher Education Committee. He's been a supporter of this monument, and he, as well as Representative Sergio Munoz Jr., and many other members, have committed to support the Tejano History Curriculum Project. It is this type of broad support that this effort has enjoyed and will continue to count on to make Texas a better place for all of us who call it home. I'm proud to have worked with all my colleagues in the House for the Tejano Monument, and this unveiling marks one of my proudest moments as a legislator. Speaker Joe Strauss couldn't be here, but he asked that I read these few words on his behalf. Greetings to those gathered today to celebrate the unveiling of the Tejano Monument. We are honored you are here to celebrate the culmination of a project that has been ongoing for over 12 years. I commend the tremendous enthusiasms and dedication of those who work tirelessly to commemorate our Spanish, Mexican, and Tejano heritage. I would like to thank the members of the legislature for supporting this historic monument. The many thousands who visit our Capitol grounds each year will now see a visible symbol of our state's Tejano roots, reminding us all of the unique contributions of Tejanos past, present, and past. To everyone here, I offer my sincere best wishes for a successful 3-day event in celebration of this momentous occasion. Joe Strauss, Speaker of the House. And representing Strauss, I'd like to point out an old friend, a great guy, Jesse Ancira, who is his Chief of Staff. Where are you, Jesse? Thank you for being here, Jesse. Next, I'm very proud to introduce a distinguished member of the Texas Supreme Court. Justice Eva Guzman has served on the Supreme Court since 2009 after having been appointed by Governor Rick Perry. She was then elected to continue serving. Justice Guzman is the first Hispanic Latina to serve as a Supreme Court Justice and the first Hispanic Latina in Texas history to be elected to statewide office. Justice Guzman has been recognized by many law and community organizations for her work on and off the bench. She is a wonderful role model for all Texans. Please help me welcome Texas Supreme Court Justice Eva Guzman.
Buenos dias, good morning. Thank you, Chairman Raymond, for that introduction. I am honored to join all of our distinguished guests to celebrate this very momentous occasion, the unveiling of the Tejano Monument. And I join all of you in congratulating everyone who had a part in making this special day possible. And I especially congratulate our artist, Armando Hinojosa. Congratulations on your wonderful work. And to our students from Austin ISD, you did a terrific job leading the pledge. No homework tonight. But wait, I am just kidding. I'm kidding. Your homework is the most important thing that you have to do between now and the time you graduate high school. So do double homework tonight. These Capitol grounds have long stirred the emotions of Texans. For decades, Texas school children have traveled from their hometowns to visit our Capitol. I remember coming here with my classmates from Jackson Junior High, from Houston's East End, the barrio as we affectionately called it. Long before I became the first Latina on the Supreme Court of Texas, and long before I occupied a very stately office overlooking these beautiful grounds, I stood right here on the South Lawn as a 7th grader. And I stood here amidst the bronze and the granite. There was no Tejano monument back then, but the legacy of our Hispanic heritage was strong, and it stirred in me a deep sense of pride to live in the Lone Star State, where Tejanos have long played a role in our history and our culture. Where strong men and women like Maria Josefa Granados, who in the 1780s owned the largest general store in San Antonio, or Doña Patricia de la Garza de Leon, who with her husband helped found Victoria, Texas. How many are here from Victoria? These women helped to settle and develop a rugged land and to build robust families and communities. And their many, many contributions shaped our culture and our history. These Tejanos taught all Texans the power of perseverance. They showed the world what committed people with a united vision can do, and their legacies encouraged and inspired generations of Texans to follow. How fitting it is that this Tejano monument, this grand monument, should stand on these Capitol grounds to honor that remarkable Tejano spirit. But today we are celebrating even more than that remarkable spirit, and even more than the glorious achievements it produced. We are celebrating the extraordinary possibilities that lie ahead for all Texans. And boys and girls, we are celebrating the limitless possibilities that lie ahead for you. Your future is bright, your future is limitless. This Tejano monument will stand not only as a magnificent tribute to our past, but as a strong reminder of our common vision for our future. So now I close my remarks in the same way that the framers of our Texas Constitution opened the Texas Constitution, by humbly invoking the blessings of Almighty God. At no other time in our state and in our nation's history do we need the blessings of Almighty God more than today. May God bless Texas and may God bless America. Thank you.
The Tejano Monument, even before it is unveiled, has already created an educational benefit for our young Texans. The Tejano History Curriculum Project is a collaboration between the University of Texas and a couple of very generous corporate partners that have begun the process of enriching our state educational curriculum with Tejano history. Here to share some of the details of the project is Dr. Cynthia Salinas of the University of Texas Department of Education and co-director of the Tejano History Curriculum Project. Dr. Salinas, welcome.
I brought my own fan club. Me llamo Cynthia Salinas, soy la hija de Juan y Eva Salinas de Hebronville, Texas. As a Tejana and social studies educator, it is an honor to represent my colleagues and directors of the Tejano Monument Curriculum Project, Dr. Maria Franquis from the College of Education, Dr. Emilio Zamora from the College of Liberal Arts, in expressing our incredible gratitude for so many who have made this day possible. We have been greatly supported by our own Dean, Manuel Justiz, and by our Chair for Curriculum Instruction, Randy Bomer, and Alan Tooley, the Chair of the History Department. And we are indeed honored to work with Laura Esparza, Juan Verdes, and Yolanda Zamora from the City of Austin's Emma S. Barrientos Mexican-American Cultural Arts Center. I cannot express the degree of gratitude we all sense as educators. Though this has been 500 years in the making, we must first applaud the Tejano Board and the state representatives and senators who have accompanied them on this instrumental journey, recognizing that the need to acknowledge the accomplishments of the Tejanos that have made this state what it is today. These individuals reflect our community's tenacity, determination, and symbolically have placed this particular monument on the South Capitol. Gracias. Second, the Tejano Curriculum Project, in an effort to promote an understanding of history, of Tejano history, so that our children will come to understand the importance of those who have come here before us, those who stand here with us, and the generations that are to follow, must thank the Walmart Foundation, and in particular Kelly Durr and the International Bank of Commerce, the inordinate driver Renato Ramirez, for the generous support we have received for this project. Walmart and IBC have done more than support the development of teaching activities and opportunities. They have opened a window that will allow for rich and altering perspectives on the contributions of Tejanos to this great state of Texas. Gracias otra vez. Third, we want to congratulate the University of Texas at Austin bilingual education undergrads. They have been dutifully working for over a year now to collect firsthand accounts and assemble a rich history for us to examine. How Tejanos traveled from Tamaulipas to Laredo and Zapata, from Coahuila through McAllen to Hebronville to Fremont, and eventually to Goliad and Victoria and San Antonio. These future young teachers assure us all that Texas public schools will continue to be guided by talented and ambitious educators. And finally, the curriculum project is about the impressive efforts and incredible leadership and talent of Austin Independent School District. We thank Dr. Marie Karstoff, the AIC Superintendent, the entire Board of Trustees, Sam Guzman in particular, Alex Sanchez, the Director of Public Relations and Multicultural Outreach, the Assistant Director of Public Relations and Multicultural Outreach, Marisa Limon, and the Social Studies curriculum staff for all that has been made possible today through their dedication to children. Today is really about the 120 children from Galindo and Brentwood and Wootton and Dawson Elementary. Today is about their teachers, Adeli Cardenas, Aaron Murdoch, Noreen Rodriguez, Belinda Jimenez, Ubaldo Perez, and Brenda Ayala Lewis. Because these teachers dare to imagine a classroom that situates Tejano children as central architects and independent thinkers. For all those of us who have worked on this project, we are simply and unapologetically grateful to so many. Our hope is that the Tejano History Curriculum Project, and with its classroom materials, will have an enduring impact and help sustain the importance of the Tejano Monument and Tejanos. So wherever you have traveled from today, please know it is a historic moment. Today we say out loud for everyone to hear, we are Tejanos.
Thank you, Dr. Salinas, and thank you, Dr. Zamora, for giving the program instant credibility. It is now time to introduce one of the driving forces behind the creation of the Tejano Monument. He is a professor of history at the Austin Community College, author of several books on the subject of Tejano history, a decorated United States Air Force pilot, a recipient of numerous recognitions, a member of the Tejano Monument Incorporated Board of Directors, my good friend, Dr. Andres Tijerina, who will give us some very insightful remarks and begin the unveiling.
Thank you. I am so proud that Richard Raymond just said, I am his friend. I am so proud. We have really tried not to leave out any legislator because they started the ball rolling for us. They made it official for you so that when it's done, it's an official monument. It's on the state capitol grounds. The representatives, the senators of the state legislature, the lieutenant governor, the governor, all of them made it official. But I have to say that I noticed, Dr. Barrera, we left out one legislator. We haven't recognized one legislator who is not just a key legislator who helped to, a while ago they were saying, smooth the road for our bill to go through the legislature. This gentleman did that. This gentleman was there day and night because the one thing that distinguishes Representative Richard Raymond is that he's not just your state representative. This gentleman here is a member of the Tejano Monument team. Can we please acknowledge this gentleman and everything he's done? Not to mention that when we wanted an MC and we said, we want an attractive one, everybody said, well, that's Richard Raymond. I'm supposed to talk today about history. Oh, I'm sorry. There are other very attractive state legislators here. And senators. I'm supposed to talk about Tejano history, but you know, every speaker here, from the governor, the lieutenant governor, all across the agenda, every speaker here has talked about Tejano history. And I noticed that the crowd is very alert to Tejano history, so geez, I hope you bear with me. I feel like when you teach and you talk about Tejano history before this group, it's like preaching to the choir. But you know what? We need it. We need to hear Tejano history. We need to hear Tejano history at the state capitol. We were taught in our American history books that the English colonists landed on the Atlantic coast in 1607, the Pilgrims in 1621. And as they conquered the frontier, they developed the American democratic spirit, and in 1776, they declared their independence from England. The American frontier drove westward from the Atlantic toward the Pacific, from sea to shining sea, we are told. And it was their grandchildren then who later arrived here in Texas with Stephen F. Austin in 1821 to settle the new empresario land grants from La República de México. Fighting at the Alamo, fighting at San Jacinto, these Texans also developed a fierce individualism that we are taught about in our Texas history books. We today, all of us, stand on the shoulders of those great men. And today we pause to remember that those Texans also stood shoulder to shoulder with their Tejano patriots at San Jacinto, at the Alamo, and at all the battles of the Republic of Texas. That when Stephen F. Austin got his land grant, it was a Tejano who handed it to him. Texas Governor Antonio Martinez and later Governor Agustin Viesca of Texas welcomed the Anglo-American settlers to come and to partake of the beauty of Texas lands. Agustin Viesca, the governor, dedicated his whole political career at great sacrifice to sponsor American capitalism to Texas, American technology into Texas. His legacy stands today as part of the greatness of modern Texas, just as his direct descendants stand alongside the other proud modern Tejanos in this very crowd. Agustin Viesca of Houston here. Al Viesca, the direct descendant of Governor Agustin Viesca of Coahuila y Texas, Agustin Viesca of Houston. When it came time to fight for freedom and from an oppressive dictatorial regime, it was Governor Agustin Viesca who issued the clarion call to all Tejanos, "Arise in arms," he proclaimed. And when Texans made their decision to fight to the death in the Alamo, again they stood shoulder to shoulder, facing sure death. They had the choice to retreat, but they chose to stay and fight. Tejanos, like Gregorio Esparza from San Antonio de Béjar, chose instead to leave a legacy of courage, to stay and fight for his family, to fight for his children, and to fight for his descendants. And it was a good choice because his descendants are here in Austin in this very crowd also, carrying on the proud Esparza legacy of freedom. Or is Laura Esparza here by any chance? Laura Esparza, direct descendant. And Laura just happened to have a little picture in her pocket. Fighting alongside with Esparza was the cavalry commander of the Tejano Company of the Alamo, and at the Battle of San Jacinto, Colonel Juan Seguin, whose descendants also are here and have erected a statue to his honor just down the road in Seguin. And when Texas took the independent status of the Republic of Texas, Tejanos like Jose Antonio Navarro not only signed the Texas Declaration of Independence, but served as a congressman in the fledgling Republic of Texas. The Navarro were one of the first families in the founding of Texas. They're historic, but they are still here, carrying on the pride of the great state of Texas. I think we have some Navarros here today, do we not? Navarros, please stand and be recognized. It was nothing new for Tejanos to fight for independence in Texas. They were a pioneering people who established La Frontera de Texas across the rugged expanses. So by the time the Anglo-Americans arrived 150 years later here in Texas, Tejanos gave them not only Texas lands, but a unique Tejano culture. Here, the Tejanos drew on their Spanish and Mexican traditions of familia, of the community laws to establish a unique body of frontera law. Tejanos wrote the first land grant laws in Texas. They wrote the first homestead law. They wrote the first preemption laws and the first community property laws that gave women the same property rights as men. Tejanos needed I might add that the homestead laws of the United States were copied from the Spanish Tejano laws. The community property laws that we have across the United States giving women the rights today were copied from the Spanish Tejano laws here in Texas. And I could go on and on, all the American laws that are Tejano laws. Tejanos didn't come as individuals. They came as familias. They came as families, whole families. When Victoria, Texas was founded, it was founded by whole families, like the De Leon, who, incidentally, are still in Victoria today and are still here today. De Leon, where are you? And when the ranches of Las Villas del Norte around Laredo were founded, the explorer Don José de Escandón brought thousands of the world's largest and most successful ranching families right here to the Rio Grande frontier. Escandón intentionally recruited the Hinojosa, the Guerra families, because they had horses. The Guerra family brought Texas Longhorns, and they still preserve the original DNA Longhorn stock on their ranches in South Texas around Lynn, Texas. They are in the audience. Where are the Guerra? The Guerra had cattle, and they were recruited because they had arms to defend themselves. Con todas armas llegaban. Rosa Maria Hinojosa de Ballí was not just a woman of the founding family of Ballí here in Texas. Rosa Maria Hinojosa de Ballí was the first cattle queen of Texas who lorded over hundreds of thousands of acres of ranch land. She commanded hundreds of vaqueros every day, and she helped to establish the unique Longhorn breed of Texas cattle. Her son, Father Nicolás de Ballí, José Nicolás de Ballí, owned the island that now carries his name, Padre Island. These are the families. These are the Tejano families who founded the North American cattle industry, who gave us the Mustangs, the Longhorns, and the concept of el Rancho Grande. Not a farm, not a ranch, el Rancho Grande. The Ballí came in the 1700s with Escandón, and they're still here today. Ballí. These are the Tejanos who perfected the horsemanship skills that are still seen today as trick roping and bronc busting in modern rodeo performances. But when the Tejanos rode a horse, it wasn't a trick. It wasn't a rodeo performance. It was a life and death struggle because they were working out on a rugged frontera. It was on the Texas frontera that Tejanos adapted their horsemanship also to law enforcement in the development of a unique compañía volante, or the flying squadron. The flying squadron was a light-mounted cavalry, no more than about 5 troopers, who rode offensively on long-range patrols all the way across Texas, armed with a pistol, a knife, an escopeta, and using paramilitary warfare. They had the authority to deputize They had the authority to prosecute in any jurisdiction, any municipality across the Texas frontera, and they had the authority to execute summarily in the field. So when the Anglo-Americans arrived, they quickly also learned, and they called theirs the Texas Rangers. But they were wearing the same accoutrements as the Tejano flying squadron. And like the Texas cowboy did, the Rangers simply borrowed the Tejano clothing, their riding methods, the vocabulary, the boots, the spurs, the chaps, and the Tejano hat. They borrowed it all, lock, stock, and barrel. Tejanos gave us our Texas vocabulary of Mexican words adapted to English, like lazo, corral, patio, rancho, and I think it was Felix Almaraz, or someone reminded me, don't forget the food. Okay, guacamole, enchiladas. But I didn't want to do that just before lunch. They named our rivers El Río de los Brazos de Dios, El Río Colorado, El Río Grande, El Río de la Santa Trinidad, El Río de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. And you know what? The food, we call it Tex-Mex, but our food's not Mexican, it's Tejano, because Mexicans don't eat jerky. They don't eat flour tortillas. They don't eat huevos rancheros. Anglo-Americans quickly learned to eat Tejano food, like the tacos, the enchiladas, and the guacamole. That's true. Carne guisada. They dressed like Tejanos, the boots and the chaps. They wore the Tejano vaquero hat. They learned Tejano skills to make a rope, to throw the rope, branding, the cattle roundup, the cattle drive, and open range ranching. That's why we call in Texas a rope a lazo. We don't call a corral a stockade. It's why a Texan today gets in a car that he calls a Pinto or a Bronco, and he drives down a street that he calls Guadalupe, and he crosses a river named Colorado, and he sits on a patio next to a corral, and he eats his barbacoa. In so many ways, the Mexican Tejano culture is so deeply ingrained in our daily Texas life that many Texans take it for granted, or they just don't even know that. They fail to see the Mexican in their own lives, in their own culture, in their own diet, in their own values of everyday life. In fact, everything that Texans brag about, the Texas Longhorns, the Texas Mustangs, chili, everything they brag about today is Tejano. Come to think of it, if it wasn't for the Tejano heritage, Texas would probably be Ohio. Have you ever heard of an Ohio Ranger? Texas is unique, and her story cannot be told without the Tejano. The contributions of the Tejano to Texas are monumental, and they're seminal. And it is why this Tejano monument stands so tall. It stands in stone and bronze because the monument tells the story of those Tejanos, whose story was, in so many ways, for so many years, silenced in the pages of Texas history books. The story was not written. And in fact, my speech today is not a speech written on paper. Those words were written in the blood and the sacrifice of those Tejanos who fought here for freedom. Whether they fought in the Battle of the Cinco de Mayo for Mexican independence or at San Jacinto for Texas independence, Tejanos fought for the families. They fought for freedom in Texas. Freedom knows no borders. It is not bound by race or ethnicity. Tejanos fought in all the wars of this state and all the wars of this nation. They shed their blood. You know it. They shed their blood at Iwo Jima. They left their names on the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, D.C. And today, you know the casualty list that we hear on television every night from Afghanistan. You know those are Tejanos, standing shoulder to shoulder with their fellow Americans, as they always have. But in many ways, their service and Tejano contributions have been an unrequited loyalty. This Tejano monument tells their story. For all those thousands of Tejano families who received the land grants from the King of Spain and the Republic of Mexico and the Republic of Texas, it speaks for the millions of Tejanos who worked on the construction sites building the modern metropolitan city of Houston. It speaks for the thousands of Tejanos who labored in the great fruit packing sheds in the Rio Grande Valley, in the mines of El Paso. The monument speaks for the thousands of migrant cotton field workers who worked in the fields of Lubbock. It also tells the history of thousands of Tejanos who went on to become bank presidents, who went on to become distinguished award-winning medical doctors, senators, legislators, distinguished scholars, and public policy maker leaders across the state of Texas. That's who the monument speaks for today. Those school children here in the audience today, they come not here today to ask if they can be Texans. It is because they are Texans that Tejanos come here today to proclaim and reclaim their history in Texas. It is because they are Texans that Tejanos come here today to claim, moreover, their place in the future of Texas. Thank you. And so today, we now give you your monument. We have asked the families, the Tejano families, to be the ones to give you your monument. They stand for you. The monument stands for you. We have on the right at the top an explorer. We have Unveiling the Explorer, the Bailly family. The Explorer. We have then the family group being unveiled by the descendants of the De Leon family that founded Victoria, who in 1689, with Captain General Alonso de Leon, brought the first cattle and brought the first families into Texas, unveil the family statue. We've asked the Navarro family, who played so critical a role in the founding of Texas. The Navarro family, the descendants of José Antonio Navarro, the founders of Texas, among the founding families of San Antonio de Béjar, descendants of the signer of the Texas Declaration of Independence. Not only a congressman, but José Antonio Navarro always advocated and defended Tejano rights. It is therefore fitting then that the Navarro family unveil the Texas Longhorn. Therefore, we have asked also the direct descendants of the Guerra family The Guerra family, who were so important when they came with Escandon in the 1700s, they founded, along with the other Spanish explorers and families and colonists, they founded the North American ranching industry. They received their porciones along the Rio Grande del Norte. They established las Villas del Norte. And as we said earlier, they still live in the Rio Grande Valley. Many of them, like Dr. Barrera, our own Tejano Monument president, still lives on his ancestral porcion land grants in the Rio Grande. They still are ranchers. It is therefore fitting that we have asked the direct descendants of the Guerra family to unveil the Texas Longhorn Bull. Little girls played a major role. Little girls were not only family members, they worked alongside the rest of the family. In a Tejano family, they had responsibilities. Many times I have read in the archives that these little girls would leave the ranch house and go way, way down to the river to bring water for the family. They took care of the small animals. They cared for the sheep that would make Texas and Tejano sheep in the 1880s the world's leading sheep industry exporter out of Corpus Christi. It is therefore fitting then that we have young ladies that you have before you unveil the statue of the Tejana girl. Unveil, girl. And the young boys, a young Tejano also had responsibilities. He had to work. He had to care for the tougher animals. He had to care for the goats, the rams. They remind us that Tejanos also brought the wool and mohair industry that we have in Texas today. A young boy, a young Tejano, worked the goats, but he always dreamt that if he worked hard someday, they would reward him as the remudero and allow him to work cattle. And he would be the vaquero then on horseback. That is why today we have unveiling the statue of a boy with a goat. The young boys today unveil the statue. We have said all along that this could not have happened without the legislators. And I want to tell you that not only did they vote for every bill that we proposed, that our legislators put forward, they voted unanimously. There was never an opposition vote on any Senate committee. Our representatives and our senators made it very, very clear that the legislature knew, as Senator Zaffarini told her committee, I'm glad you voted for the Tejano Monument, because if you hadn't, nothing else was going to get through her committee. It is therefore fitting that when our historians wrote the text for the plaques, there are 5 plaques in bronze, each of them telling in 400 words the story of a different period of Tejano history. Tejanos under Spain, Tejanos under the Mexican flag, Tejanos in the Republic of Texas. These plaques were written by distinguished historians like Dr. Felix Almaraz, here in the audience today, Dr. Gilberto Hinojosa, Dr. Carolina Castillo-Krim, wave Carolina, and the late and wonderful Jack Jackson. I hope Jack's family is here today. They are. Thank you for coming. And you will read now the words of Jack Jackson and the others as the legislators now unveil the Tejano plaques.
Thank you, Dr. Tijerina. Now for the final unveiling, the Tejano Monument Board of Directors and its advisory board will step up. Let's give them a big round of applause. Tejano Monument Board of Directors and its advisory board. You ready? Unveil the vaquero. Finally, before we conclude, we're close to concluding, folks. Let me recognize, I see a couple more House members here who were so supportive. Representative Carol Alvarado from Houston and Representative Mark Strama from Austin. Thank them as well. We want to thank the countless volunteers who helped make this day and this ceremony a great success. They were led by Juanita Tijerina. Juanita, thank you so much. We love you. And a couple of other recognitions, folks, that we have to make. First of all, Richard Sanchez. Richard Sanchez, who throughout this process, working with Representative Flores and Representative Munoz, Richard has guided this thing from the beginning, been such an important part of it. And John Sneed, the Executive Director of the Preservation Board. John, we are here in this spot because of John Sneed. This was his idea, and we will always be thankful for that and for his tremendous work with us. John, thank you. Thank you. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, so many people were involved in this, all of you. But every great effort requires a quarterback, a manager, a chairman of the board. There's always an MVP. And in my opinion, it's not scripted. Renato Ramirez did so much to help guide us and to get us to this point. If it hadn't been for Renato, this would have happened, but it might have taken another 10 years. Every time I look at that vaquero, Renato, I'm going to think of you. God bless you. Armando, where's Armando? Get up here. And his grandchildren. Let's give him a tremendous round of applause. What a talented, talented, talented artist. You'll be remembered forever, Armando. We're so proud of you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today and being part of history. Muchísimas gracias por su presencia y participación. We hope to see you at all the related Tejano history events this weekend. God bless you y que Dios los bendiga. Thank you.
Is my great-great-great-grandfather. His name was Manuel Esparza. He was only 5 years old when he lived through the Battle of the Alamo. There were Tejanos, 20 of them actually, that survived the Battle of the Alamo, and many of them that actually fought in the Battle of the Alamo.
The beauty of the event today is that we have a speaker who comes after 200 years of stories handed in her family to let people know that Gregorio Esparza was a Mexicano in the Alamo and his brother was outside the Alamo. many people would not know that battles are about dividing families, for instance, that independence is also about dividing families, and that this should be part of history that should also be told. In order to identify exemplary bilingual teachers, they have to have been in the classroom at least 5 years, and if they were interested in a master's degree, in order to develop leadership, so that they would take on leadership roles within the district, and then they were selected for the program. And out of those teachers, I chose 6 that were teaching in 4th grade, so we could then pilot test and write the curriculum that would supplement the adopted curriculum so that we would have more inclusion of Tejanos and Tejanas.
6 of the AISD teachers actually did a little bit of research to decide and design a project that was fitting to their students and into their class. The children feel very confident in every process of the project that they've done, from the reading, the research, to writing and summarizing their finds, and then being able to present them in different visual ways.
Growing up, I wasn't really able to relate to history as much. I am a Tejana, and we did learn a lot of Texas history, but I just really never heard of any Tejano, Latina, or a Mexican, or anything of that sort who I could relate to. So as far as this project, it's just a way to bridge a connection between students and to let them know you are part of history. You really are. You just gotta dig through and see, and you'll find history, and you'll be able to relate to history.
Behind me are a group of 4th graders from AISD that are sharing some storybook box projects that they've worked on. So what they've been doing is researching Tejanos and Tejanas that are important to Texas history. And then they created a box which tells that story visually and in text. They're also sharing that with the undergraduates from the University of Texas. They're a bilingual cohort who is studying to be bilingual teachers.
What makes him special to Texas?
Because he studied medicine.
And they themselves researched also Tejanas and Tejanos in history and created some journey boxes that are filled with primary sources as well as secondary sources that includes visuals such as maps, photographs, any documents that they could find pertaining to that person's life story and their contribution to Texas history.
I think the kids are gonna respond to this journey box great. It has everything. I've learned from what I've experienced and interacted with students. They're really big on visual, anything that they can touch, see, it works out perfect. So there's a lot of that here. I just feel that they're really gonna be excited, really interested in what's in here. They're gonna take a journey in the journey box, and they're just gonna be really excited. Our journey boxes, they're actually gonna stay here at the Mexican American Culture Center, and they will be here available to the public.
I just hope that we get a chance also to do some professional development for teachers who are very interested in supplementing the adopted curriculum with, I think, materials that kids will be happy to engage in and get their families engaged in and get the community engaged in. We have so many wonderful resources such as the Mexican American Cultural Arts Center where we are today that can assist us as a place where we can have the kinds of sharings that we're having today.